Hi, what's happening, y'all? It's your boy Rico from StreetScores, and today we have several things to talk about. First of all, JWJ Jr. explained why Marshon Lattimore had a bad game against the Buccaneers and how we could potentially fix it. Can't wait to dive into that. Also, we're talking fourth down strategy from the offensive side of the ball. We're super going to talk about that. Cliff Kingsberry has some interesting things to say there. Also, the Commanders are strategizing against that Lions home crowd. We're going to talk about what they're doing in practice, and we also got to discuss the run game struggles that we've been having. Cliff Kingsberry dove into that as well. But before we get into everything, first of all, I have the trivia question right now on my calendar. Daily question for every single video, every single day. I'm going to give y'all the answer at the end. The question is, who passed for a team leading totals of 1,859 yards and 12 touchdowns for the Commanders in 2022? Oh, that question is so easy. Either way, though, I'll give y'all the answer at the end. And before we get into everything, make sure you stiff on that like button, stiff on the subscription button, and stiff on the bell next to that subscription button so you get notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all for pulling up to all of the videos, supporting, leaving likes. And you already know, just like that Buccaneers live stream, we will be live streaming this upcoming Lions playoffs game as well, play-by-play analysis, all of that type of stuff. And you know I'm just as confident walking into that game as I was the Buccaneers. Any given Sunday, line it up. I don't care who's in front of us. Let's get it. And let's go ahead and dive into this video right now, man. Let's go. Adam. All right, so first of all, JWJ Jr., you know how like the first day of practice, we have Dan Quinn, the head coach, and our franchise quarterback, Jaylen Daniels. They speak after or before practice or whatever. And then the second day of practice is JWJ Jr., our defensive coordinator, and Cliff Kingsberry, our offensive coordinator. This is just how it's gone pretty much every week the entire season. Since we play on Saturday, we had to move everything up. So normally our first practice is Wednesday, our second practice is Thursday, and then the third one's Friday. Now with us having to play on Saturday night, going against the Detroit Lions, especially in Detroit, all of our practice days moved up one day. So the first day of practice was Tuesday. Today is the second one, Wednesday, January 15th. And then tomorrow will be the final practice day where we'll get the official reports of who's out, who's questionable, all of that type of stuff. And I'm probably going to talk about a lot of those things in a separate video, maybe later on tonight. We'll see. Either way, though, JWJ Jr., when he spoke to the media today, he said that Lattimore's performance wasn't what anyone wanted, but he's confident that he'll shake up the rust. And now, first of all, I really like the fact that he actually acknowledged how Marshon Lattimore did have a bad day. Instead of just trying to dismiss it or maybe blame the refs, not calling offensive pass interferences on Mike Evans or anything like that, he just straight up said, yeah, that was bad from my boy, but we're going to get better and move on because we think he could just shake off the rust. That's probably why he was that bad, and he should be better moving forward. Instead of just moping around and making excuses, all of that type of stuff. And then to go even further, Witt also explained why he felt like Marshon Lattimore had a bad game and how he basically knows and feels like Marshon Lattimore will be better into the future. So I feel like that was the perfect answer because he could have just given excuses. He could have just given us some simple, super plain vanilla answer to where he doesn't really actually answer the question, but he straight up said, yeah, my boy, I'm rooting for him, but that was a bad game. I expect him to be better, and here's why. He also went on to say, full quote, I have full confidence that he's going to win because he's getting the reps every day and he's going to knock the rust off, unquote. He talked about how Marshon Lattimore had very few full speed reps before facing AJ Brown and very few before facing Mike Evans as well in this past weekend's game. He said, quote, but it comes with the territory because of who he is, unquote. So even if he doesn't get a lot of reps, you know, it's still time to go out there and play, but I think that's a fair excuse. Not really like an excuse like, man, you were bad and this is why you were bad and we're just going to put it on. No, I feel like, if anything, that's more of a way to look at it to where, okay, Marshon Lattimore should, and I believe will be better because this is why he was bad. Not, oh, Mike Evans only got the best of him because he was rusty. I don't care about all of that. No, at the end of the day, Marshon Lattimore did get whooped by Mike Evans, especially in that first half. But I feel like the fact that he was rusty, the fact that he has not been getting a lot of full speed reps, just any time leading up before any of these games, before we played the Eagles the second time, before we just played the Buccaneers in the playoffs, he's been hurt all the way up leading to it, to where he barely even gets to practice before these matchups. And now he's finally getting a full week of actually being at least somewhat healthy going into this upcoming matchup against the Detroit Lions. So I feel like, again, that's not an excuse to explain and to just basically wipe away why he was bad before. I feel like that's more so of a reason why he'll be better in the future. I'm really excited about it. But shouts out to David Evans, because he brings up a good point. He said, if the problem is the fact that he's not getting full reps why he's not playing well in games, then it's weird that he had a vet day off yesterday's practice. That's a good point. JP Finley replied, though, and at this stage, they're really only running full speed like one day of the week, and he practiced that day, and that's all that really matters. And I'm assuming by JP Finley replying with that is that Marshon Lattimore has not been necessarily practicing those 1 days a week where they go full go. Those are the days he's missed. He's been there like some of the lower tempo days where they take things easier to not stress any injuries. But this time around, he's actually going out there and fully participating in the one practice that he needs to heading into a matchup. So I'm really excited about that. Let's do it. And just to point it out too, I feel like rust, it was an element of this game, because Mike Evans had 5 catches for 66 yards and a touchdown in the first half alone. He only finished with 7 catches, 92 yards for the night. So basically in the second half, the Commanders only gave up 2 catches for 26 yards against them. And so, you're kind of looking at Marshon Lattimore like maybe that second half, maybe we figured a little bit of something out. I never really truly felt like he just locked them down, not even in the second half, but he did something better in the second half than he was doing in the first half. So that's improvement. That's showing that, hey, maybe he did knock off some of that rust, and maybe he started to heat up a little bit in the second half once he finally got going. Because I just refuse to believe that this isn't rust or some type of health situation. His hamstring probably still bothering him or something like that, where Lattimore is still not, like, he just has to not be 100%. Because Lattimore has held Mike Evans to his under betting odds the last 9 times they've played each other until just a few days ago in that Buccaneers playoff game that we won. And also, man, the Commanders also, if you really think about it, just take a step back, are 3-0 when Marshon Lattimore plays. So no matter how bad he's been playing in games, we still find a way to win. So you want him to play no matter what, because at the very least, he's bringing some type of good luck with him or something. Like maybe he still got some of that New Orleans voodoo still attached to him somehow or something. I don't know what's going on there. Either way, my main point is to you fans that are like so anti-Marshon Lattimore right now, and I can kind of understand it from how he played against the Buccaneers, but for those of y'all that are just super duper anti-Marshon Lattimore, just keep in mind, probably some rust, probably a little bit of health issues, and at the end of the day, every time he stepped on this field for us, even if he didn't finish the entire game, we are 3-0. We are undefeated, so keep that in mind. Also, Joe Wood Jr. has some other more interesting things to say. He said that as a defensive play caller, he grew by no longer trying to call the perfect play. He said that it happened going into week 4 at Arizona. We ended up winning that game, but he said that he started calling what he wanted rather than what he felt was the perfect call. So he's starting to get his defensive play calling rhythm, if you want to call it that. You got to remember, like, he was the defensive passing game coordinator for Dan Quinn the past 3 years while Dan Quinn was the defensive coordinator. Dan Quinn got a promotion to become head coach here, and then subsequently, Joe Wood Jr. follows Dan Quinn from the Dallas Cowboys to the Washington Commanders. He gets a promotion as well to become defensive coordinator. This is sort of new to him. Like, this whole play calling thing is a little tricky. You just can't go out there immediately and know exactly what you're doing. First of all, not even just on your end, not only do you have to learn the players, but I've talked about this from the player standpoint as well. The players have to learn you. Like, they have to learn the defense. You have to know what your defense even is. And like, with what you have, you got to learn how to utilize that at a better rate to be more efficient and things like that. You got to remember, Mike Sanderstill, with good reason, with how short he is, how small he is, skinny and everything, he barely weighs anything. We drafted him to be a slot corner. That's what he was, an elite slot corner in college, arguably the best slot corner in the entire 2024 draft. So based off of what he should put on tape for the past couple of years at Michigan. Based on how he's built, his athletic profile, you would assume he was a slot corner going to the NFL level, and that's what we tried to do the first couple of weeks. Then we realized, hey man, this guy may actually be better at outside corner somehow, and lately we've noticed that he is. But the first couple of weeks, we were just trying stuff, man. Like, I mean, this is, again, it's not even like we have new pieces added to a defense that was already here. No, we have new everything. Joe Jr. came to the Commanders, had to take over what roster was already here. Then after that, they dismantled a lot of the roster by getting rid of a lot of Herrera guys, and then brought in some Adam Peters and Dan Quinn guys, and then they had to adjust to that as well. It takes a few weeks. You got to remember that some of the starters on this defense didn't play a single snap in the preseason. Guys like Bobby Wagner didn't play a single preseason snap. So really the first few weeks of the season was like our true preseason of like, yo, what is going on here? Who are we? What is our identity? What are we good at? What are we bad at? We didn't know those things until like the middle of the regular season, to be completely honest with you. That's why some people filter our stats into like, since week 4 we're this, because statistically since week 4 we are a top 10 defense statistically in the NFL. I know it's excuses and everything like that, but really you do have to just kind of separate the first 3 weeks away from the rest of the season. Once we've had guys healthy on one end. I mean, we lost Jonathan Allen for most of the season, but like Frankie Louvu, Bobby Wagner looked useless week 1 against Tampa Bay, and then we started to think that Frankie Louvu was an all-pro caliber player by the middle of the season. And so to Joe Witt Jr.'s point, by the time we got to week 4 Arizona, even on his end, like the players got to get better, they got to understand each other better, and then even Joe Witt Jr. isolated just by himself has to realize, hey man, let me call the play that I want to call and not trying to overthink it and call the perfect play. And I appreciate the fact that he like gave us that insight as to what's been going on throughout the season mentally for him strategically, and I like that. I really appreciate the fact that he was transparent like that, and it does explain a lot of the issues that we were having earlier in the season. Also, Joe Witt Jr. said that Quan Martin is an ascending player who was only going to get better, and that sounds great, but I really hope not only is he right, but I also hope that ascension that he's talking about comes like right now. Like we need it immediately for this upcoming Lions game, because we're going to need him to be ready to do both. Help all of our corners over the top with Jameson Williams, and because Jameson Williams can outrun any corner we have in this room. Like, I love Marshon Lattimore. I'm way higher on him than most of the fan base. I think once the rust is knocked off, like we talked about earlier, once that hamstring is fully healthy, I think he'll get back to his Marshon Lattimore self that we traded for, that we think he can be. I still truly believe that. And I love Mike Sanders still as well. But none of these guys, even with Jameson Williams, can keep up with him. He's going to run past every corner we have on this team. He does it to any corner in the NFL. Jameson Williams is arguably the fastest player in the entire NFL. As a Georgia Bulldog fan, I could tell you, I had to deal with that 2021 a lot. On top of that, number 2, speaking of my Georgia Bulldogs, we went from having to deal with Jameson Williams in 2021 to dealing with Jahmyr Gibbs in 2022. Jahmyr Gibbs, Quan Martin will not only have to help with the corners, he also needs to be ready to come down and help and team tackle Jahmyr Gibbs. He's the type of guy that anytime he touches the ball, it could be a touchdown. We're going to need Quan Martin to basically suddenly turn into Ed Reed for this upcoming game against the Detroit Lions, because he's going to have to do both. He can't just focus on not letting the Detroit Lions take the lid off of the defense. He can't just only focus on stopping Jahmyr Gibbs. He has to do both, and he has to know the exact timing and situation, which one to decide on, a lot of the times pre-snap, hopefully. So we'll see, man. Quan Martin, he's going to be a huge reason we either win or lose this game. I'm gonna go ahead and tell you that right now, because these corners can't keep up with Jameson Williams. He's gonna have to help them there, but he can't only help them there, because that will leave the middle of our defense, that front 7, exposed to the Jahmyr Gibbs experience. So woo-wee, boy, buckle up for this one. I think it's gonna be a pretty heavy offensive game. The Detroit Lions are a very talented defense, but they have injuries, and then we're still working. We have talent on our defense, but it's only year 1 technically of a rebuild. I know we've won 13 games games, including this postseason win against the Buccaneers, but this roster is still like really not that good. This is Jaylen Daniels elevating the roster and making everybody better, and basically has us playing way further than we should be right now. Jaylen Daniels, you can argue, is carrying this team. At the very least, is elevating this team to ridiculous heights. I mean, you can name a lot of other quarterbacks. This is a 4 or 5 win team roster. Like literally, I'm not exaggerating at all. Jaylen Daniels makes us that much better. So this defense still maybe a few pieces away from being elite and dominant. I feel like JWJ Jr. is doing a good job of taking advantage of what he has and making something basically out of, I wouldn't call us nothing defensively talent-wise, but it's not a lot. The Detroit Lions definitely have more talent. They just have more injuries. So we'll see how that goes. I think it'll end up being like some type of shootout because of that. We don't have that much talent to begin with, and then they have a lot of injuries. I think both offenses are at an advantage right now, so I think this is going to be a pretty high-scoring game. We'll see, though. Also, JWJ Jr. talked about the fact that the Jets requested to interview him for a head coaching positioning, and I mean, you could already guess what type of quote he gave you, but he said exactly, quote, "My whole focus is on Detroit. If I put any effort, any energy into anything else with this opportunity that we have, I'd be cheating these men." And I completely agree. I love the fact that he has that mindset. That's kind of the mindset that you expect him to have, but it just sounds even better when you actually hear him say it like bar for bar. And then shouts out to Ref the District. Make sure you follow them on Twitter because they bring up a good point. He said that exact mindset alone should get him a head coaching job. And I completely agree. But hopefully he stays. Like Mark Bullock brought up, defensive coordinators rarely just go from first year of defensive coordinator and then the very next year become a head coach. That maybe like an offensive minded coach can do that, but not necessarily a defensive coordinator can make that leap that quickly. So I'm expecting JWJ Jr. to still be here at least till next year. And who knows, maybe the Jets are just doing their Rooney Rule. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, it seems like they're interested in Aaron Glenn, and Aaron Glenn is apparently interested in them, so maybe it isn't a Rooney Rule type of thing. Maybe they're actually taking JWJ Jr. quite seriously, but again, I think he'll stick around. But also, my point is, like I brought up in my video when I talked about them trying to interview JWJ Jr., like, does he even want that job? The New York Jets? Like, ew, did y'all even see how the Jets social media team is not even reading the room? Look at this post right here. Like, come on, dog. Garrett Wilson already threatened y'all and told y'all if Aaron Rodgers comes back next year, I'm out. Sauce Gardner, I think it was like on Instagram, like replied to another NFL starter. I can't remember who it was, but it's a really good NFL player that we all know. I just can't remember exactly who it was, but he literally told him, do not come to the Jets. It was like the other NFL starter, really good player, put something on an Instagram post about the Jets, like, hey, should I pull up? And then Sauce Gardner was like, no, don't come here. Don't even do this to yourself. Basically saying, I want out of here too. Like, it's so much turmoil. Why, this whole trend about, hold the picture, put it in 4K that's been going on Twitter and things like that. I don't know why the Jets chose Aaron Rodgers out of any player to do that with. And JWJ Jr. has to look at that like, yeah, man, maybe the Jets actually are thinking about even possibly considering bringing back Aaron Rodgers next year. And that's insane. That's not a situation you want to go to right now. That boy Aaron Rodgers was running the team. He even got the coaches fired. Like, I don't even know why you want to pull up into a situation like that where the quarterback is essentially running the entire team right now. We'll see if he sticks around, though. Either way, moving on to our offensive coordinator from our defensive coordinator, that transition there. Cliff Kingsbury, he talked about sticking with the run. I know a lot of us have questions about this run game and what's going on. But hey, man, Cliff Kingsbury tried. You can't say he didn't try. We ran the ball quite a bit. It just wasn't working. And at a certain point, he was like, all right, this is not working. We want to win this game, right? Don't you? So this run-pass balance is not going to work because every time we run the ball, it's not going anywhere. We're going to have to tip the scales towards the passing side a little bit more. But he said, quote, "It's helped me a lot having a defensive head coach," in Dan Quinn he's talking about. He lets it be known we need to run the football. At times, I would maybe in my previous life be airing it out, unquote. And that's a good point. Like, Cliff Kingsbury has the itch to just throw the ball. He's coming from an air raid system. They prefer to have 4 wide receivers on the field at the same time with maybe a tight end. That means only one running back, and you're more than likely trying to throw the ball. They're trying to go vertical, horizontal, everywhere. They're just trying to sling the ball around. They're essentially like, we prefer slants over running the ball. That's like our run game, essentially throw easy slants and comeback routes and things like that. So yes, he is a very pass-heavy minded type of offensive coordinator. He prefers to throw the ball, but that's why we brought Anthony Lynn in to kind of balance him out with the run game. Bobby Johnson, our offensive lines coach, is helping that as well. And then he also gave Dan Quinn credit because he's basically saying from like a defensive mind and from the like defensive coach's point of view, it really stresses a defense when you do not know if an offense is going to pass the ball or run the ball. If an offense is balanced and you don't just know automatically every play they're definitely going to pass the ball, it stretches you out. It stresses you out. You don't know what to focus on. As a defense, you need to focus on one thing. Otherwise, you're always going to be wrong. Like, the offense essentially, hypothetically, has 5 answers every play. If the defense picks the wrong one out of those 5, they lose. The offense is at a serious advantage on most plays. That's just how football works. That's how the rules are set up. That's just the nature of the game. The defense has to do whatever they can to figure out what the offense is exactly trying to do, because if they don't, things can go wrong. And then you can know exactly what they're doing, and then you can just miss a tackle. And then now the offense wins even when they were wrong with the play call. So the offense is always at an advantage, but at the same time, to keep a defense at an even further disadvantage beyond what's already just naturally at state when it comes to just the nature of this game, then if you keep it run pass consistently and the defense can't just focus on the pass only, it's a tough job for that defense. So shouts out to Dan Quinn for always giving them that insight, like, hey man, I know you love to pass the ball and all, but hey man, I'm telling you right now, as a defensive coordinator, as a defensive-minded coach, the threat of you still thinking about, even potentially considering running the ball, throws us off as a defense and makes it so we have to be more balanced, which means a balanced defense is a vulnerable defense. Again, a defense needs to do whatever they can to focus on exactly what the offense plans on doing. If they don't, then they're exposed. They're vulnerable no matter what. But run game wise, it was ugly. I mean, it's amazing that we somehow won the time of possession battle 35 minutes to the Buccaneers 24 is insane. With our running backs, they only had 44 yards. Like, Jaylen Daniels was our leading rusher. Austin Eckler, Jeremy McNichols, and Brian Robinson combined for 44 yards and only averaged 2.3 yards per carry. I can see why Cliff Kingsbury eventually got to the point where it was like, man, if you want to win this game, I got to pass this ball. I know, yeah, run pass balance and everything. We should still try to run the ball. And he did. He ran the ball more than I expected with how bad it was, especially off of how poorly we were running the ball in the first half. I'm surprised we attempted to run the ball with Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, and those guys as much as we did in the second half. So shouts out to Cliff Kingsbury for trying his best. But at a certain point, he's like, I got to open this up, man. You want to win this game or not? All right, let's pass the ball with the best player on this entire team, arguably the best player on the entire field on either side of the ball, and Jaylen Daniels. Put it in his hands and let him figure it out, because that's what he does, and he wins games that way. Also, Cliff Kingsbury said on 4th down play calls, he has plays he wants, but also said it's about the players first. So sometimes he's basically letting us inside of his mind, kind of like JWJ Jr. did earlier with the first 3 weeks trying to call the perfect play and then learning that he needs to call the play that works best actually, or what he feels like is the better play at the time. But Cliff Kingsbury is basically saying, I have plays that I want, like in this situation, it's 4th and 2. I'm thinking this play is the best play possible, but sometimes maybe the play needs to go around the player, not the players go around the play, is what he's saying. So now he's learning to focus on the player. Like he said on the 4th and 5 pass to Zach Ertz on Sunday, he said that it was a basic day one install. This is a play that they've had in their back pocket since the very beginning of off-season workouts. But the main point was to target Zach Ertz, so the play wasn't anything special. The special part was the tight end that they wanted to target. They felt like featuring him in that clutch moment would bode well, would produce positive results for us, and it did. So Cliff Kingsbury is learning, instead of making it about the play, how about making it about the player and then picking the right play for that player, to feature that player and to give him moments to come up big for us. And it seems to be working. I mean, we're historically like the best 4th down offense in NFL history, so whatever Cliff Kingsbury is doing, it's working. I mean, like literally, for example, the Commanders 2024 4th down EPA per play was the best among any team over the last 25 seasons. Out of 798 offenses, the Washington Commanders are first. That is absolutely insane. That is a historically efficient offense, specifically at 4th down. It's insane. Also, the Commanders became the first team in the play-by-play era since 1991 to win a playoff game in which they had 5 4th down attempts. Teams were 0-8 in such games prior to that Commanders win. Now teams are 1-8, with us having the only win ever to do that. That's absolutely insane. Also, Cliff Kingsbury talked about Terry McLaurin. He said, quote, when he's involved early, we're a lot better as an offense, unquote. And I completely agree. Please get him involved early. Please, please, please. It seems to work out very well for us. And I'm so happy that Jaylen Daniels to Terry McLaurin connection seems to be fixed a little bit, because we went a few weeks of it looking pretty ugly. Like, oh man, if Jaylen Daniels and Terry McLaurin lost their connection, can they not find each other? Where's the chemistry? They seem to have found it when we needed them to, and against the Buccaneers early and often. So that was big time, man. And then you also have the guy that had the exact same amount of receiving yards as Terry McLaurin in that Bucs wildcard victory a few days ago in Dyami Brown. Cliff Kingsbury talked about him. He said Dyami Brown's professionalism has improved as the season has gone along, and it basically culminated with a playoff gem versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Dyami Brown had, I mean, maybe not his most touchdown game like he had with Carson Wentz a couple of years ago, maybe not the most yards he's had in the game, but the most impact. I feel like that game against the Buccaneers was his largest impact. It was the screen game. It was over the middle. I mean, he's finally starting to get open on anything other than just a 9 route. Thank goodness. Like, he's such a utility player to where you can use him to take the lid off of the defense. He can run and get open on intermediate routes. You can use him in the screen game, behind the line of scrimmage, jet sweeps, all kinds of things. He is a consistent threat for a defensive coordinator to worry about, and that's only going to make Jaylen Daniels' job easier. That's only going to make Terry McLaurin more open more often. So I'm really excited, man. Also, Kingsbury said that Jaylen Daniels' biggest jump from his junior year to his senior year at LSU was going through multiple reads and getting to his 3rd and 4th target. Kingsbury said, quote, that's what blew me away the most, unquote. So Jaylen Daniels' ascension mentally, which is why some people are comparing him to being like a Tom Brady in the pocket. He just happens to be able to run a 4.4 something and run past everybody else on the field. You know, that's extra. But as like a pure pocket passing quarterback, people are starting to compare him to Tom Brady with how clutch he is and how he can truly go through his 3rd and 4th read all in like a short amount of time, because that's what you have to do at the NFL level to be consistent and successful. Also, Cliff Kingsbury talked about how he feels about the Washington games coming down to the wire. He joked and he said, I need to get a higher fade to hide these gray hairs. I mean, he's probably been stressed in these moments, man. These last 6 weeks have really come down to the wire. It's really amazing, though. It's a beautiful thing, but it would be nice if we could start winning games just, you know, off of just normally winning, like, you know, winning by like 20 points, coasting in the 4th quarter or something like that. Because you got to remember, man, week 15 at New Orleans, we stopped a 2-point conversion with no time left. Week 16 versus the Philadelphia Eagles, 9-yard pass touchdown with 6 seconds left. Week 17 versus the Atlanta Falcons, 2-yard pass touchdown in overtime. Week 18 at Dallas, Marcus Mariota this time, 5-yard passing touchdown with 3 seconds left. And then just against Tampa Bay in this playoff game a few days ago, 37-yard field goal as time expired, man. He is sick of it. These guys are stressed out. This is not easy to deal with, especially when you're the one that's a part of it. You think we're stressed as fans. Imagine the offensive coordinator. Like, golly, man. Also, shouts out to the Commanders, because apparently they are manufacturing and adding crowd and stadium noise. They're pumping it inside our practice bubble for practices this week. And basically they're talking about, and they're trying to get used to the fact that communication will be challenging at a ruckus Ford Field. The Detroit Lions will be loud. I mean, that Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, we were like 40-50% of that crowd. That's not going to happen in this Detroit Lions game. That crowd is going to be very blue. We need to get used to not only the crowd being very loud and being swayed completely towards the other team, but also it's a dome. So the sound is just going to just bounce around the acoustics and everything. I'm pretty sure they build the stadiums with a deliberate design to maximize the amount of noise you can produce as a fan base in that stadium. I'm pretty sure they got the acoustics right. They got everything to where the noise stays inside, and if anything, only magnifies, exponentializes. So, man, we got to be ready. And shouts out to Dan Quinn and the Commanders for realizing that and being like, all right, so we're just going to practice in a really loud environment. We're going to practice in it. So by the time we get to this game Saturday night, hopefully we'll be used to it. And then we'll also need to know what measures we need to take, like what precautions, like if Jaylen Daniels can't hear his headset, what's the when in doubt we go to just in case, and things like that. Do we need to hold up some signs like college just in case? I don't know. I don't exactly know what they're going to do, but I like the fact that they're acknowledging it and they're planning on something. They want to make sure they don't get any false starts, any wrong play calls, any delay of games, having to waste timeouts because Jaylen Daniels can't hear his headset or whatever. So we want to make sure our communication is flawless, even if we have to add some extra steps and processes that we typically normally wouldn't have. Also, shouts out to Rico's rag, because I agree. He said you fail to prepare, that means you prepare to fail. I've always loved that quote, so I definitely wanted to make sure I included that because I completely agree. Also, just to let you know, they are practicing indoors because it's just that windy and cold outside. The Detroit Lions do play in a dome, so it's not like we necessarily have to adapt to that temperature, so we should be good to go. Also, really random, but the offensive line has like a competition that they do every time they're stretching in practice, every single day that they have practice, where like they see who can like fling this thing from their ankle the furthest. And I just like I'm only bringing that up because it's just the bomb. Shouts out to Nikki Javala for pointing it out and even tweeting the video of it. I mean, I just love the bond that this team has. Every position group has their own bond within. The position groups have bonds, you know, amongst the different position groups. I mean, we had Samuel Cosme, I believe it was, interviewing Luke McCaffrey. Like, he got one of the mics from one of the media members and asked him like some really silly and personal questions and things like that. He asked them like, which of the McCaffrey brothers is your mom's favorite right now? Like, who's the favorite son right now? And just random like silly stuff. Jaylen Daniels always joking around with Mike Sanford. They're always talking trash about each other's college teams. Jaylen Daniels and Bobby Wagner always have this random petty, bitter rivalry thing that they have going on and things like that. They always downplay each other's accomplishments and stuff like that. Everybody just seems like it's just a bunch of best friends on the team and all amongst up and down the roster, including the coaching staff as well. So I love that. But yeah, man, that's the end of this video. Please get in the comment section. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. Please still follow that like button, still follow the subscription button, still follow the bell next to that subscription button so you get a notification each and every time I release an informative and opinionated video just like this one. Make sure you stay tuned to all of the content. Really appreciate y'all. If you made it this far in the video, I salute you. And of course, the answer to the trivia question was Taylor Heinicke. I felt like that question was so easy because, I mean, like, who else was our quarterback in 2022 throwing for that many yards and things like that and 12 touchdowns? But it is what it is, man. Shouts out to Taylor Heinicke. I'll never forget those seasons. We weren't a very good team, but at least we were fun to watch, so I really appreciate him for that. And he's from Gwinnett, so, you know, it's another Gwinnett guy right there. So shouts out to Taylor Heinicke, man. But yeah, man, thank you for making it this far in the video. Make sure you do not leave this video without leaving a like. And of course, let me know how you feel about everything discussed in the video. JWJ Jr.'s comments on why Marshon Lattimore hasn't been good. Do you see that as an excuse? Or are you like me where you're thinking, okay, maybe there's some optimism as to once that's out the way, he will be better? Or do you think this is just who Marshon Lattimore is and he's cooked and he'll never be back to his Pro Bowl level self? Let me know how you feel about everything Cliff Kingsberry said about trying to stick with the run game, about going forward on 4th downs and things like that. Let me know how you feel about everything discussed in this video. I really appreciate y'all. Again, leave a like on the way out. I'm gonna catch y'all later. I'm out.